Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
After listening to today's news, you'll know first Finnish startup solid-state battery hits 110% capacity at 100 degrees Celsius, disrupting EV battery cooling. We'll explore how a battery that thrives on heat could transform EV design and thermal management engineering workflows. Second, Instagram and TikTok's AI adds shopping links to user posts without consent, raising FTC concerns. We'll analyse why turning users into unwitting advertisers is a turning point and how it affects the creator economy and trust on social platforms. Third, Apple's $599 iPhone 17e uses strategic feature paper cuts and a 60Hz screen to upsell consumers. So we'll discuss why these deliberate compromises matter and what it means for Apple's product tiering strategy and consumer psychology. Fourth, Qualcomm declares robotics a $1 trillion opportunity, challenging NVIDIA with its new Dragonwing chip. We'll break down this chip giant showdown and what it signals for the future of physical AI platforms and the US-China tech competition. Fifth, Amazon's AWS data centers hit by military drone strikes, revealing the physical vulnerability of the cloud. This discussion will reveal how the attacks connect to the new reality of geopolitical risk and what it means for the future of global cloud infrastructure. A new battery was just tested at temperatures hot enough to boil water, and instead of failing, it actually got stronger. This isn't science fiction. It's a new solid-state battery from a Finnish startup called Donut Lab, and the results from an independent test are a potential bombshell for the entire electric vehicle industry. Here are the jaw-dropping numbers. When tested by the VTT Technical Research Centre of Finland at 80 degrees Celsius, the battery's capacity jumped to over 110% of its normal performance. Even at a blistering 100 degrees Celsius, a temperature that would be dangerous for standard batteries, it was still delivering over 107% of its power. What makes this hotter is better phenomenon so mind-blowing is that it completely reverses how we think about battery health. The secret lies in the battery's solid electrolyte. As the temperature goes up, the ions inside this solid material can move around more freely, almost like a highway with less traffic. This increased ionic conductivity is what boosts the battery's performance, allowing it to deliver more power more efficiently when it gets hot. It's a fundamental shift from cooling a battery to potentially just managing its heat. To understand why this is a game changer, you have to look at the batteries in almost every EV today. Traditional lithium-ion batteries use a flammable liquid. When they get too hot, that liquid can vaporize and catch fire in a dangerous process called thermal runaway. It's one of the technology's biggest weaknesses. Donut Lab's technology scraps that flammable liquid for a solid, conductive material. And the test results show this completely flips the script on heat. Instead of being a danger, heat actually makes this new battery more efficient by lowering its internal resistance, allowing power to flow more easily. The cell continued to provide power and could still be recharged even after being subjected to extreme heat. For decades, this kind of solid-state technology has been called the holy grail of batteries, eluding researchers for years. Now, this is a race with billion-dollar players like QuantumScape and Toyota, all trying to solve the same incredibly difficult problems. One of the biggest hurdles for everyone is something called the dendrite dilemma. Think of dendrites as tiny, sharp, metallic whiskers that can grow inside a battery, eventually piercing the internal structure and causing it to short-circuit and fail. Any company that claims to have a breakthrough solid-state battery must have a convincing solution to stop these dendrites from forming. The promise has always been electric vehicles with longer range, shorter charging times, and a level of safety that today's batteries simply can't match. While the technology is still in development, these test results signal a massive leap forward. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of complexity, going from a single promising battery cell in a lab to a massive 1,000-cell battery pack in an electric car is one of the biggest challenges in engineering. You have to ensure that every single cell is perfect and can withstand years of vibrations, temperature swings, and constant use. The manufacturing process has to be flawless and scalable to millions of units. So, while a successful lab test is a huge victory, it's just the first step on a very long and expensive road to a commercial product. A battery that doesn't just tolerate extreme heat, but actually thrives in it, could fundamentally rewrite the rules for electric vehicles and energy storage everywhere. From a fundamental breakthrough in hardware, we're now shifting to the software side of things, where AI is making some controversial decisions on its own. The most unexpected news in the social media world today has to be this. Your post might be selling products right now, and you have no idea. Platforms like Instagram and TikTok are deploying new AI that automatically scans your content and adds shopping links to it, often without your consent. So the thing is, these platforms are using advanced visual recognition AI. It's a type of deep learning model trained on massive data sets of images to identify and categorize objects. When you post a video, the AI scans every frame, looking for things it recognizes: a handbag, a pair of sneakers, a lamp in the background, and then automatically links to similar looking products for sale. It happened to an influencer with over 1 million followers, Julia Berolzheimer. She discovered an AI-generated shop the look button on her own posts, but the button didn't link to the product she was paid to promote. Instead, it sent her audience to lookalikes. In her own words, "My followers were being shown cheap knockoffs and random items from brands I've never heard of, attached to my image, under my name." And this is where the situation takes a more complex turn, legally speaking. What Julia is describing is essentially an unwitting endorsement. The Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, has very clear guidelines that say endorsements must be disclosed. By attaching a shop the look button to her content, the platform is implying she endorses those products. This potentially violates not only FTC rules, but also what are known as right of publicity laws, which protect you from having your name or likeness used for commercial purposes without your permission. Meta calls it a limited test, but this isn't just a problem for professional creators. The same feature has been spotted on TikTok accounts with as few as 400 followers. The AI is turning everyone into an unwilling advertiser. So why are both platforms rolling this out simultaneously? Believe it or not, it's a social commerce arms race. They are strategically trying to copy the success of Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu, which have mastered the art of blending entertainment with instant shopping. TikTok's parent company saw this work with their Chinese app, Douyin, and now they're bringing that playbook here to capture a bigger piece of the e-commerce pie, and the rabbit hole goes deeper. Reporters found TikTok's version of the feature, called Find Similar, was being automatically applied to videos coming out of Gaza, effectively turning a mass humanitarian crisis into a promotion for products on TikTok Shop. This particular case exposes the biggest flaw in this technology. The AI is good enough to recognize objects, but it has zero understanding of context. It can't differentiate between an intentional product placement in a fashion video and an incidental object in a news report from a war zone. To the algorithm, a piece of clothing is just a piece of clothing, regardless of the human tragedy surrounding it. It has no ethical filter. This is the new reality of the creator economy. The promise was that anyone could build a brand and an income, but now platforms are cutting out the creator entirely. They are hijacking user content to create a massive automated shopping engine. What really brought this to a head is how it attacks the entire business model the creator economy was built on. For years, creators made money through affiliate marketing networks where they get a commission for driving sales. Now, platforms like TikTok are vertically integrating, building their own TikTok shop to capture that entire transaction. They don't need the creator's affiliate link anymore. They can just use the creator's content to sell products directly and keep all the profit. It's part of a larger trend where brands hire regular people to create unpolished content for as little as $20, a new gig work subgenre called UGC, or user-generated content. The creator economy's central premise has come true, but under Monkey's paw-like circumstances, everyone is an influencer, whether we like it or not. And this leads to a much bigger, almost philosophical question. If any piece of content can be instantly monetized by a platform's AI, does the idea of organic or authentic content even exist anymore? It erodes the trust between all of us. This is a core idea in what some call the dead internet theory, the feeling that much of the internet is becoming a landscape of bots and AI-generated content, making real human connection and trust harder and harder to find. Speaking of AI being integrated into our daily lives, Apple is making a huge bet that its own Apple Intelligence will be a standard feature, even on its new budget-friendly iPhone. The company just dropped a new model for $599, but the real story is in the features that are deliberately missing. The new iPhone 17e looks like a steal. It packs the same powerful A19 chip as the more expensive iPhone 17. Now, get this, that a 19 chip isn't just about making the phone feel fast. By including it, Apple is making its full suite of Apple Intelligence features a baseline, not a premium luxury. The A19 chip has a powerful 16-core neural engine designed specifically for on-device AI. This means all the new AI magic, like real-time photo enhancements and live translations, happens right on your phone, making it faster and more private. And that signals a huge shift. Apple is essentially making advanced on-device AI a standard feature for every new smartphone, putting immense pressure on competitors. The phone also finally gets MagSafe and Qi, 2 wireless charging, and doubles the base storage to a generous 256 gigabytes. On paper, it's a massive upgrade. But that's not the whole picture. The trade-offs begin here, and they are significant. That new $599 phone is running a 60 Hz display. To put that in perspective, every single other model in the iPhone 17 lineup, from the standard 17 to the Pro Max, features a super smooth 120 Hz screen. You are giving up half the refresh rate from the start. The screen is also less than half as bright, hitting a peak of just 1,200 nits compared to the 3,000 nits on its siblings. You also lose the dynamic island, the always-on display, and you don't get a dedicated ultra-wide camera for macro photography. Even your selfies will be lower resolution, with a 12-megapixel front camera versus the 18-megapixel shooter on every other model. The compromises continue with power. The 17E charges wirelessly at a slower 15 watts, while the pricier models get a faster 25-watt speed. And battery life? The 17E is rated for up to 26 hours of video playback, but the iPhone 17 Pro Max can last for up to 39 hours. That is a 13-hour difference in performance. This all paints a very clear picture of Apple's strategy. From a business perspective, this reveals a masterclass in product tiering. You know, the strategy that leverages psychology to influence what you buy. The research calls these strategic feature paper cuts. By deliberately holding back features like a 120 Hz display or a better camera, Apple creates just enough friction. It makes the base model good, but not great, which creates a fear of missing out, or FOMO, and enhances the perceived value of the more expensive models. They are making you feel the compromises so that spending an extra $200 feels like a smart upgrade rather than just a high price. For a $200 savings compared to the standard iPhone 17, Apple is giving you a modern chip and more storage, but it comes at the direct cost of screen technology, camera versatility, and battery endurance that are now standard across the rest of its premium lineup. We were just talking about the powerful chips Apple is putting in its phones, but another chip giant, Qualcomm, is looking beyond smartphones to what it calls a $1 trillion opportunity. Robotics, the company whose chips likely power the phone in your hand, just dropped an absolute bombshell. CEO Cristiano Amon went on the record with a prediction that could reshape the entire tech landscape. He says within just 2 years, robotics will become a larger opportunity for the company than its core smartphone business. If that sounds like a sudden pivot, remember we talked a while back about Qualcomm's push beyond phones with its Wrist Plus AI wearables. Chip and early tell that the company was gearing up for a broader era of devices powered by low power, on-device intelligence. Let that sink in. The king of mobile chips is betting its future on robots, and it's happening fast. Amon stated plainly, "I think robotics will start to get scale within the next 2 years." The reason for this massive pivot is a new frontier called physical AI. Essentially, it's about moving artificial intelligence out of the cloud and into the real world. It's not just about processing data, it's about giving robots the ability to perceive, learn, and interact with their physical environment in real time. This is the key to making them truly autonomous and useful for complex tasks. We previously analysed how humanoid demos, especially those we saw out of China, were racing ahead on locomotion while fine motor skills remained the ceiling. Physical AI is precisely the bridge to close that gap from flashy moves to real dexterous work, and the numbers behind this shift are staggering. Amon is citing a potential $1 trillion opportunity. Other analysts are forecasting a global market for humanoid robots reaching an unbelievable $9 trillion by 2050. A while back, we also talked about how the first wave of AI gadgets stumbled. Think the Humane pin, but the underlying demand never went away. The hardware and power envelope just weren't ready. That's the context that makes this next move feel different. To seize this, Qualcomm is launching a new line of robotics processors called Dragonwing, aiming to do for robots what its Snapdragon chips did for smartphones. Continuing our last discussion, the strategy echoes Qualcomm's recent AI gadget push. Lean into ultra-efficient, always on intelligence with big compute kicks when needed, and court developers who want flexibility up and down the stack. The situation presents a fascinating duality. On one side, Qualcomm's success with Snapdragon was possible because the Android market is relatively standardized. One chip can fit many phones. On the other side, the world of robotics is completely different. It's highly fragmented, with thousands of different types of robots for specialized jobs in factories, warehouses, and hospitals. So the big question is, can a one-size-fits-most chip strategy truly work here? Or will companies like Tesla, which design their own custom chips and software from the ground up, have the advantage? As we discussed a while back with Qualcomm's support for proprietary Linux-based systems in wearables, the company has shown it's willing to meet AI-first players where they are outside of locked ecosystems. If Dragonwing brings that same openness to robots, it could matter a lot in a fragmented market. But if that was just the appetizer, the main course is just being served. This is about a new battleground for the biggest titans in technology. NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, has also singled out robotics as one of his company's major sources of future growth. You now have two of the most powerful chip giants in the world publicly declaring their intention to dominate the same emerging market. Here's where it gets interesting. Their strategies are different. NVIDIA, with its Jetson platform, has a huge head start. Its approach is built on its powerful GPUs, which are fantastic for raw parallel processing power. Think of it as the heavy lifting muscle for AI. Qualcomm, on the other hand, is expected to play to its own strengths, incredible power efficiency, and integrated 5G and 6G connectivity. So the battle is shaping up to be NVIDIA's raw computational power versus Qualcomm's efficient, always connected intelligence. It's a classic clash of philosophies. And as we noted in the AI wearables discussion, Qualcomm's edge has often been sipping power while staying always on, a profile that translates well to mobile robots that can't live tethered to a charger. Add in the major pushes from players like Tesla and a wave of Chinese companies, and the stage is set. A while back, we walked through how China elevated AI and humanoid robots in its national planning, how regulators flagged low differentiation, and why a state-guided consolidation into a few champions could follow. That backdrop means Qualcomm isn't just entering a hot market, it's stepping into ecosystems that may be reorganizing themselves in real time. And that mention of Chinese companies is critical because we are in the middle of a major tech rivalry between the US and China. The US has put strict export controls in place to limit China's access to advanced chips. In response, China is pouring money into developing its own domestic chip industry. This means that major Chinese robotics firms might be pushed or even required to use homegrown chips instead of one from a US company like Qualcomm. We could be heading toward a split in the global robotics supply chain with two separate competing ecosystems. We previously highlighted how China has flexed leverage on critical materials and how breakthroughs like DeepSeek's software efficiency showed that smart algorithms can blunt hardware constraints. If that pattern repeats in robotics, decoupling won't necessarily slow the competition, it may just bifurcate it. The race isn't just about building better robots anymore, it's about building the brains that will power all of them. And the fight for that $1 trillion prize is officially on. But there's one more piece to this puzzle. A universal chip platform works best with universal software. The industry is rallying around something called the Robot Operating System, or ROS, but we are still far from having a single dominant Android for robots. This software gap is a huge bottleneck, so even with the perfect chip, the ultimate success of this new robotic age may depend on who can solve the software problem first. And as we said a while back, software ingenuity think mixture of experts and other efficiency plays can change the game. Whichever stack marries that kind of intelligence with a widely adopted platform could end up owning the category. While Qualcomm is betting on putting AI into the physical world with robots, the physical world just struck back at the heart of the digital world. Amazon just confirmed that its cloud computing arm, the backbone for countless websites and companies, was hit by military drone strikes. The most striking part of this is that data centers, these massive hyperscale facilities, were traditionally designed to withstand natural disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes, not military attacks. In response to new threats like low-cost drone swarms, the entire industry is scrambling to re-engineer these fortresses. We're talking about integrating advanced counter-drone systems, physically hardening the buildings with reinforced structures, and essentially turning them into military-grade installations. This wasn't an isolated incident. 3 separate Amazon Web Services facilities in the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain were damaged. 2 were hit directly by drones, while a third in Bahrain suffered physical impacts from a strike in close proximity. The company reports the attacks caused structural damage, disrupted power delivery, and even required fire suppression activities that resulted in additional water damage. We're talking about real-world physical destruction of the cloud. These attacks followed US and Israeli strikes against Iran, pulling one of the world's largest tech companies directly into a rapidly escalating military conflict. Now, you might be wondering, why would companies like Amazon invest billions to build these critical facilities in a region with known geopolitical volatility? Actually, it was a calculated risk. The business case was to tap into massive emerging markets and, crucially, to comply with local data sovereignty laws that often require citizen data to be stored within national borders. This attack fundamentally alters that risk assessment, but this is where Amazon's recommendation to its own customers becomes a bombshell. Back up your data and, quote, potentially migrate workloads to other parts of the world. A cloud provider telling its clients to leave is a massive red flag about the stability of the region. This recommendation to migrate is an admission that failover isn't automatic. The reason this is so significant is that many believe you can just flip a switch and move your entire operation to another continent. The reality is that it's technically complex and incredibly expensive. We're talking about massive data transfer fees, which can cost up to 9 cents per gigabyte to move between regions. For a large company, that can run into millions of dollars. On top of that, you have to deal with database synchronization and latency issues. It is not a simple fix. And the company's own assessment is grim. AWS is now officially warning that the broader operating environment in the Middle East remains unpredictable. This comes as Iran launches waves of missiles and drones against US bases and allies around the region. Meanwhile, Donald Trump has signaled that the US strikes on Iran could last for weeks or potentially go far longer. This isn't just about a service outage. The key infrastructure that powers our digital lives is now officially a physical target on the battlefield, proving that the cloud is not in the sky, but on the ground and directly in the line of fire. And ultimately, the cascading economic impact is what makes this so critical. Think about all the local businesses in the UAE and Bahrain, the banks, the e-commerce sites, the tech startups that rely entirely on this now vulnerable infrastructure. To make matters worse, most standard business insurance policies won't cover disruptions caused by something like this because they contain what's known as a war exclusion clause. So these businesses are not only down, they're likely facing the financial losses all on their own.
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.